Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome, Sixers, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. This is episode 182. Today is February 24th, 2025. I'm Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my thorny co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome.
No one's described me as thorny before. Doughy, but yes. Thorny, no.
I've always found you quite prickly.
Oh, no.
Before we get started, we do want to remind our listeners that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means that if there's something in the Cosmere that you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, then come back and join the discussion. Tonight, we are continuing our deep dive into Wind and Truth, taking a closer look at each of the major storylines. Tonight's focus is going to be Dalinar and Navani's story as they, well, we're not quite at the spoiler part yet, but as they do their thing. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we'd like to remind you that it's possible for listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. We record episodes every other Monday night starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So please join us and take an active part in the discussion. And just as a reminder, that because we announced last episode, there's only going to be a few of those opportunities left for a while, so you'll definitely want to come in and chat while you can.
Mm-hmm.
So how are y'all doing?
I'm sick.
How was y'all's weekends?
Better, because I wasn't sick then.
It's all about sick or not being sick, which I mean I can understand.
Fair.
Yeah. I got a few things done. I got my Night Radiant skirt done, and I got my
Very
Cosmere
cool.
World skirt done. So
Very cool.
mm-hmm.
I was cooking a lot this weekend. I made ribs and baked beans on Saturday, and then on Sunday I smoked a couple of picanhas, and oh my gosh.
I don't know what that is.
Picanha, Picanha. It's a cut of meat. It's also called the top sirloin cap, or some people call it the culotte.
If a cow got a tramp stamp, it's where it would be.
Okay.
I hate that you're not wrong about that.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% correct on this. You showed me the chart.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's really popular. Like the cut of meat is really popular in Brazil, but it smokes so well.
It was delicious.
It's one of the best things I think I've ever cooked on the smoker.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, that turned out really, really well. And on Saturday, I marathoned all 3 Lord of the Rings movies because that's the kind of nerd I have.
Nice.
No, my nephew, he's turning 18 in a few months, and he's never seen them, or he had never seen them.
Oh my.
And so I got him to fly up here from his home, and he spent a weekend out here. He went snowboarding with his sister, and then spent the night at my house, and we marathoned all 3 Lord of the Rings movies. It was kind of an epic undertaking.
There you go.
I mean,
it's very draining.
The epic started in terms of modern fantasy.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, it's essentially the beginning. I mean, in the terms of modern fantasy, there were epics long before, but epic fantasy, absolutely.
But yeah,
like epics go back to like the Odyssey.
Yeah,
and Iliad.
I meant epic fantasy.
Right.
Gilgamesh and everything else. Yeah.
Gilgamesh, even, yeah. Okay, well, to our patrons, the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. Again, y'all are amazing. We really appreciate you. We're actually going to be pulling the Patreon down in a few weeks once we've moved and transitioned into our new format. Again, we'll give a brief reminder of exactly what's going on there in just a bit. But y'all have been amazing, seriously. So, but as I was saying, we are getting ready to hit our 7-year mark. We've been doing this for a long time. We've put out an episode every 2 weeks, I believe. I don't think we've missed one.
No, we missed
I don't know that we
one
have.
somewhere.
Did we?
Yeah, we missed one
I
somewhere.
think we shifted. We've shifted several
Yeah.
times. I don't remember if we ever missed one.
I swear we missed one somewhere because things just weren't lining up.
But
We may
overall,
have.
that's still pretty
But over 7 years,
impressive.
missing one, I think we did okay.
Yeah, I think it was literally one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like in the middle of a summer or something.
Yeah. But we're at a point where we kind of feel like we need to step back our release schedule. So we're going to be, we're not going to be doing episodes every other week anymore. We will do episodes from time to time. If Brandon comes out with a book, we're going to hop in and give our thoughts on it. But we may not rush to try and get it out as quickly as possible. So you will want to keep us on your, subscribe list on your feeds, so that you can know as soon as we put one out that it'll come. Just it's not going to come nearly as regularly.
It'll just be a nice surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be just one of those little bursts where you're like, hey, I remember them. So the plan is to finish out the main storyline of Wind and Truth. So we've got tonight, and then we've got 2 more episodes after this where we'll be doing that. And just as we go on, we'll keep you updated as we develop more solid plans on how that's all going to work.
Indeed.
But with that said, let's move on to the Cosmere Thing of the Week. So Jordan, do you have the Cosmere Thing of the Week pulled up?
Oh, it is up.
Okay, this is one that I came across on r/Imaginary Cosmere, and it's just absolutely stunning.
It's so pretty.
It's called Leave Your Sword by Micah Epstein. It's of the prelude to the entire series where Taln and Jezrien are conversing after the battle, and they're saying they have also been working for quite some time, perhaps a bit more than 7 years, in fact.
Yeah, I frankly feel like kind of the weakling in comparison, but I'm no herald.
Yeah, Tom's giving us the serious side eye right now. But I love this image. This is by Micah Epstein, as I said, and just the colors, the weariness that he's able to convey in this image is just so good.
Plus, just I don't know. I've always liked the intricacy of these swords.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah, I love that they have such consistent designs. That's one thing that Brandon has been able to do with this enormous machine that he's built over the past 2 decades. And it's just, it's really, I love that they're able to actually have that consistency so that we can have art and immediately recognize, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous.
It's like Tolkien kind of did this sort of thing because he did a lot of his own art for, like, he had the map for The Hobbit and stuff like that. But Brandon has taken it to a whole other playing field.
And 2 different warehouses.
Yeah, fair enough. Not to mention an underground lair, an entire house, and eventually Sanderland.
One of these days.
So it's on its way. I don't know if they've had a groundbreaking or anything on that. It'd be interesting to.
I drove by where it's going to be, and I don't see any signs.
It's just a field still.
Yeah.
Okay. I liked that Steve actually went to the spot for his video. Steve from Read He's
like,
I'm
out. Trespassing.
he actually went for his video, and he's like standing on the spot that Brandon owns. He's like, I trespassed on Brandon's land. Better than at his house. Do not go to his house.
Yeah,
why? It worked out well for me.
This is why Sander. You were invited there. In fact, you were paid to come.
Darn straight I was. And they tip well. I'm glad to report.
I was invited.
For those who don't know, I randomly, when I was door dashing, actually DoorDash to Brandon's house one time. And the entire time I was really worried. I'm like, oh, please let him tip well, because I don't want to know that Brandon doesn't tip well. That's not information I need.
That's right, because it just said E. Sanderson, and
Yeah.
it was another. There were two E. Sandersons. Was
Yeah,
that?
that was the weirdest thing ever. And it wasn't until they said, "Oh, you have Emily Sanderson, you have Elizabeth Sanderson," and all of a sudden my brain just went, "Wait,
Hold on."
You actually called me. You're like, "What is Brandon's wife?" Because this was back in the early time before we knew all the details behind Brandon's
and I was
life.
And you're like, yeah, I think so. And I knew I was in the right spot when there was a Cosmere symbol in the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
It's like at that point, I knew.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so let's move on to Sanderson news. Aside from the fact that Brandon tips well, Moment Zero is at 100%. It has been handed off to editorial, and it is ready to go for Tailored Realities, which is going to be the book release for this year's Dragonsteel Nexus.
Yep.
All of his finals from last year are now graded. He said it usually takes him about a year to get through all of them, and so he's done that.
There you
go. The finals, just because it's a creative writing class, it's a little bit different sort of thing, like which is why it can take a year for that kind of thing, because it's not typical for a professor to take a year to get your final grade.
Yeah, that would not be great.
But he has, and because of that, he's gotten all the other stuff off his plate, so he has now resumed the pre-writing for Ghostbloods, aka Mistborn Era 3. So that is back in play. Brandon was also on. Okay, I've never heard of Tim Ferriss.
I hadn't either.
But Brandon announced that he had done the podcast. Jordan had went in and started listening to it and was just pushing me. So I'm about halfway through it because it's a 3.5 hour.
It's big
conversation. Very, very long form.
But I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Tim Ferriss. Like, that's making it sound like I listen to him way often. But I've listened to him from time to time.
Okay.
And I've liked what he's done. And more importantly, this interview with Brandon, I thought is just really good.
Yeah, I've like I said, I'm about halfway through it, and it's got some really great stuff. Brandon said that this is kind of the definitive interview of him, because it's not often that he goes out and does a 3.5 hour interview with someone.
Yeah.
But this is a bit unique from the other Tim Ferriss interviews I've watched. You can tell Tim Ferriss always goes out of his way to be as neutral an interviewer as possible. It's sort of like Brandon's writing, where, it's glass pane writing, where he's just trying to give you access to whoever he's interviewing. But you can tell he's a little bit of a fan, actually, because he's getting a little more into it than he normally does, which I found hilarious.
Yeah, so the video is on Tim Ferriss's YouTube channel, Ferriss.
Yeah.
And
like the wheel, not iron.
Yeah, with an extra S. And Brandon actually flew him to Utah and interviewed him within the lair. So,
which is just a flex.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so Brandon's lecture series. So apparently the way he typically does it is he'll do 2 weeks of lecture on a topic and then a Q&A on that topic. And so his first series of that is now up. And then the newest interviews that he's been working on are about character. So if you want to check those out on his YouTube channel, definitely go do that. StoryCon, we mentioned that they were going and their whole team went, and they had a con game, sort of like they've done at Dragonsteel Nexus. That was this last weekend. So they posted about that all on their social media and stuff. So if you want to check that out, it was just Brandon's team, not Brandon himself, but they went and supported that. And then also, so this year we talked about in our episode about Dragonsteel Nexus, they had these really, really fancy glass goblets that you could get as part of the World Hoppers Ball. And those are now for sale on lightweaverfoundation.org. So you can, if you want one of those, you can go get it.
Yeah, and I checked the shop and they are there. They do say they won't ship until March.
Yeah.
But
it's almost March.
But they're there. They're in stock
Like,
as of now.
We're very close to March. So they also have the sill ornaments. They had some metal stormlight ornaments from this year. And they also said that the staff said that Brandon should ask people, what will you fill your goblet with? Brandon had a clear beverage. It looked like Fresca, but I don't know that that's what it was.
It probably was ice water.
Very, very likely. His sister, Jane, had hers filled with, she called it a candy salad. It's just a bunch of candy. I'm sorry. Don't call that a salad. I have opinions on this. And then he said
I'm all for this. Let's expand what is a salad.
And then his children would likely respond with the blood of their enemies. He's concerned about his children at times.
He's like, they don't have any enemies. And I'm like, but it sounds fun to say that, right?
Yes, they do. Whoever Scalzi's kids are.
That's a generational feud now.
Oh, goodness.
If I'm writing the story.
One sad announcement he had, Brandon Mull came and did a lecture with him that they tried to record and it didn't work out, unfortunately. So they're not going to be able to post that, but he said he is going to try and get Brandon Mull to come on and do a live stream with him at some point. If you're not familiar with Brandon Mull, he wrote the Fablehaven books and the Beyonders. He's
Candy Shop Wars and
Candy Shop Wars. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I actually have met him a couple times, and he's a really nice guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing this live stream because it should be a lot of fun having the two Utah YA author Brandons dueling.
Mm-hmm.
Weird that it happened twice.
I'm wondering if there's going to be pistols at 20 paces, but
Jeez.
So
only one may live.
Brandon, there can be only one. Hi, Brander.
Oh goodness.
Anyway, moving on. So let's
Why
let's
are you
move
surprised?
on.
You're clearly not better than this.
I'm not. I'm just shaking my head still.
Let's move on to the main discussion. So we're talking about Dalinar and Navani's stories. So last week we talked Kaladin and Zeth. This week, so my brain when we're thinking of Dalinar and Navani, my brain keeps wanting to jump straight into the spiritual realm. And I'm just like, no, a lot of stuff kind of happened before that.
Yeah, like I keep wanting to do that too. Like, because that's where they are for like the majority of the book.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's clearly the most impactful thing. What you're going to remember about the book is they dove into the magic soup.
Mm-hmm.
Which is apparently what the spiritual realm is.
I mean, that's kind of how I picture it.
Yeah. No, like it is. It's just, I mean, I said it when we were doing the preview chapters, which at this point now feels like a lifetime ago. Just when they first said, yeah, we're going to be doing the spiritual realm, it was just one of those things where it's like, wait, really?
You're doing what?
I just kind of always assumed it would be like the Beyond.
Yeah, it's like we never see this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing, like they said that they were going into it, and I kind of pictured the spiritual realm as the cognitive realm on Cell. It's the same sort of storm of just power pulsing around and so I'm just like, I didn't think people could go to the spiritual realm.
Yeah, because I just didn't even think of it as a place. Like,
well, because they even talk about how location is not a thing.
Yeah,
it's not firm. It's because it's all just kind of there.
We do kind of see that come into play, where it's more about your connection to things and your understanding of it, creating it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a weird, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, so
we say it's like they had stuff before that. Immediately go into it.
But like, so Navani, of course, is now the new bondsmith of the tower. and
Mhm.
she and the sibling are kind of figuring out how this whole thing works, because the sibling is not fond of humans, never wanted to be bonded again,
Yeah.
and out of sheer necessity and desperation, finally agreed.
And not only are they bonded, humans are just all up inside.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah,
it's really interesting looking at the effect that it has on Urithiru. It's a very different effect than I expected.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Well,
did not anticipate what we got.
and
well,
it's
and
and all the Spren are super attracted to Navani too. Like she's just like the queen bee that they all just want to be like right there.
she's
where
so
she
hot
is
right
all
now.
the time. Yeah, she's popular. Yes.
But it's such an interesting thing, because yes, I had a feeling when Urithiru woke up, it would be, the Fabrials would be more regularly working, but I wasn't expecting, we just have a constant flood of investiture now. Like
Mhm.
we're just marinating in it.
Investiture juice.
But
To make it go like to go and make it gross.
no, magic juice. It's I've that's what I've called investiture for years. It's magic juice.
It's the marinating. That's what just
It's what makes things more
Marinating is not
delicious.
gross. It's delicious.
Yeah, I have to be with him
I'm
on
just
this
gonna
one.
move on. It's fine.
No, we're having this debate now.
Yeah, you brought this up. We're
Like when you marinate something, I often think of it being like meat, raw meat. And so
what are
having-
humans?
oh goodness, no. You're just making it worse.
Amy, you didn't cook your children, did you?
No.
Okay, then they're raw
What?
meat as well.
Oh goodness.
So humans are raw meat.
They're lit. Oh, I'm not.
It's really hard to argue with this. His logic is infallible.
It's just gross. I'm just gonna stick with I'm grossed out. It's fine. It's fine.
Is it? But no, the other thing that's interesting is how you see that the sibling is starting to play favorites. Like you can tell the sibling is interested in Lift
Mhm.
because Lift is in a very interesting spot from the sibling's perspective, because Lift was chosen by the sibling's mother.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And emanates her light.
Yep.
Like is able to actually create naturally her mother's light, which is kind of or their mother's light. The sibling is, but yeah,
We don't know the gender.
no, it's neutral.
It's neutral. Okay.
Yes, but it's just a very, very interesting. Like Lift is a strange case.
She's
I mean,
her own thing.
you could have just stopped at strange, but yeah.
But it's also really interesting seeing the sibling and Gavinor's response to the sibling, because Gavinor was tortured by Spren.
Yeah.
So
he's
Gavinor
terrified
is
of
a
them.
bit skittish about them. And
Yeah.
he finds out, the sibling is a Spren. And not only that, we're inside of her right now, or of them. We're inside of the sibling right now.
Which is
And
different.
Just a little.
It's not a normal thing.
But yeah, it's just, and so, Gavinor has to talk to Navani and be like, is this, I love that Navani kind of notices, he's skittish, and she's like, no, they're friendly, they're helpful, this is a, it's sort of, it reminds me of in Jurassic Park when Lex is terrified of the Brachiosaurus. He's like, no, they're Vegisaurus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also good moments with Navani where she's like telling a lot of the other little random Spren that are around and Gavinor's there. She's like, you guys got to shoot. He needs space. You can't crowd him. Don't do that.
We've got someone working through a little bit of trauma right now.
Only
a lot of bit of trauma.
Whole lot of trauma.
Yeah.
There's a
Don't
touch
worry,
of that
it gets
in these
better.
books.
Oh no, it doesn't.
How can you just lie bold-faced like that to us?
Because I know how quickly it's going to be wrong.
Oh, man.
That poor
Yeah,
kid.
so of course we already mentioned, but Dalinar has a little chat with Kaladin at one point because he's trying to figure out succession, because every time he has an heir, something goes wrong.
They
First
aren't interested.
they're not interested. They get murdered. They murder someone else.
It's just all these problems.
And so finally, he's just like, Kaladin, my boy. Remember
What
the
could
time
go wrong?
Remember that time when I bought you and your friends freedom? I need a favor.
I'm gonna cash in that chip right now. Just kind of. Yeah, and he also has the Stoneward guy as his secondary backup too.
Right. No pressure.
No pressure.
Wait. Just okay. Skipping to the end. Does that mean the Stoneward guy is the current king of Urithiru?
He's got to be.
No,
I mean, Gavinor's still there, but he's in no shape to rule.
Yeah,
Navani would still technically be, because she's
True.
queen.
Except
I guess that guy could
she would need some sort of
he'd have to be the king
like
regent.
a steward. Yeah.
The real answer is probably Yesna.
Yesna's not doing well either, though.
She's not doing well, but at the very minimum, she actually has led.
Knows what she's doing.
She has, but she doesn't trust herself right now.
Yeah, she took a big blow to her.
That doesn't stop anyone.
I don't know.
But it's someone with experience is going to be needed. And no offense to the Stoneward, like I don't see any evidence the Stoneward has ever led anyone.
Other than like maybe a small military force or something like that. He hasn't led a city.
But
I forget his name.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm so bad with names because they drop so many new characters on us.
I'm trying to remember what side, which realm, like where are Relaine and Renarin right now? Are they in Urithiru, or are they? Because I know Shallan's in the.
They're in Urithiru.
They're in Urithiru, so that's at least one Kholin is in Urithiru and conscious, not counting Gavinor, who's again working through some stuff. Gosh, that poor kid. But
it's Dami. Dami is the
the
fourth ideal Stoneward.
Okay.
Which with their rear end.
Okay. So we also have conversations with Hoyd and Cultivation, and both as Dalinar's basically just trying to figure out how can I get a leg up in this, this what's the not tournament
contest
of champions.
Well, that was the thing that was interesting, was because Wit originally said, "Man, okay, you did a great job with this contract."
Mm-hmm.
And then,
of course, Wit said you did a great job with this contract. Wit drew up the contract.
Yeah. No, because he did not. Because Dalinar had to improvise in his negotiations with. So it's modified. And at first Wit's like, "You've done a great job," but then Dalinar starts like, "No, this is like I'm just following whatever Honor's plan is, and Honor's dead. Like, how good of a plan can it be?" To which everyone in Mistborn starts laughing at that, because it's like it can be really good.
You never know. I mean, we got a dead guy running around. It's great.
Yeah, a dead god can come up with a good plan on occasion, but this one not here. And and it's completely related to the problem of their goal is to just keep things as they are.
Yeah.
And Dalinar sort of sees that, and it's like, okay, I need to think this through. And then when Wit has his freak out, because he finally realizes that
he's been bamboozled.
He's taken the stock of his day, and suddenly realizes, wait, I'm missing time. Which is a weird superpower to have, but makes perfect sense given how he's doing things.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
knowing I'm missing something and knowing where that gap is, suddenly I'm missing something big.
Well, and not just
Mhm.
that, it happens in a way that race would never work.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, this is wrong. This has to do with Odium, and Odium is not who I think it is.
Yeah, which is bad because I don't remember where it comes out exactly, but somewhere. Oh, it's much later. But they come out with like part of it was word of mouth agreement versus in the contract agreement, so Todium doesn't feel obligated to follow it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, and on
'cause,
top
yeah,
of it, he
Race was
also
planning to, but yeah.
well, and it's also Hoyd is an oath breaker. And so like the thing some of the protections that he would normally have don't apply to him anymore because he didn't become a god like the rest of them.
Mhm.
And he now whatever it is, he still couldn't outright attack him until much later. But
Yeah.
he's like, okay, what can I go after? Okay, I can't attack you, but these breaths over here.
I can do that. Just
Well, it's like
pluck that
suddenly
out.
he has jurisdiction over this.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, yeah, just that realization of I always come back to it. What is the weakness of all clever men? They don't know as much as they think they do. And Hoyd is the pinnacle of that.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well, I mean, to the point where he literally doesn't know as much as he thinks he does because his memories have been
Yeah.
taken.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just a very clever little way to go about it. I'm a fan.
So anyway, they also meet with cultivation and, you know, because Dalinar is trying to figure out, I have a contest to come up with. Right now, I'm planning to be my own champion because I can't think of any better option because I'm the Blackthorn. And I mean, if you want something done right, you got to do that. That's kind of Dalinar's whole mindset is, I'm the one who's going to do this.
Well, it's what a leader is supposed to do.
Never ask somebody to do something you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. But I'm trying to remember, how do they end up on Ba'ato Mishram?
What do you mean on it?
Or no, what? Sorry, my brain is muddling things. I'm trying to think. Dalinar and Navani go to the cognitive realm, the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
For what purpose?
Because they need to figure out what Honor knows.
Yeah, and to see what happened with that. Yeah,
that's right. They're there to find the history. Shallan's the one who goes looking for Ba'ato Mishram. Okay, cool. I'm back, but but yeah, and so they just say, hey, this is what we're doing. So they decide to test getting into the spiritual realm. That's the other thing is like, you know, we weren't sure that a person could get into the spiritual realm. And this is even just sort of experimental. I mean, Wit understands it better than anyone else, but even he doesn't just the spiritual realm is one of those unknowable things.
Yeah. I believe what he says is, this is a place even I dare not go.
But just the whole concept of, okay, we're going to be careful. We're going to be safe. We are going to be fully prepared when we do this. We're going to set up a tether. We're going to have you dip in for just a few minutes, then pop right back out. You figure out, you kind of get your feet wet a little bit. You start understanding how it works. And of course, Mraize just messes everything up.
I guess this is Diablo 6 Ghost Blood.
What?
Sorry, I said Deus Ex Ghost Blood, and then I'm like, wait, no, I guess this is Diablo X.
Yeah, the devil's in the the Ghost Bloods. Ghost Blood Ex Machina.
Yeah.
There we go.
The Ghost Blood in the machines. But yeah,
definitely
so
the spanner in the works.
Okay, I'm going to say something. I always, any sort of book or story that I'm reading about where somebody goes into like this fey realm where physics doesn't work right, it always messes me up a little bit as I read it, just because I feel like I'm kind of trying to juggle reality and like understand how do these rules work. Any book that happens in some version of our world, it's like, okay, I understand these rules. It's easy, but it almost like, I almost feel like I have to believe that everything is an illusion. Like it just feels weird trying to keep my footing as we're reading. Like it happens with the Fey realm. Honestly, even the first time they went to the cognitive realm, I'm just like, the rules are different here. And so I feel physically uncomfortable as I read about this.
Well, that's good, because
It's supposed to be.
Clearly meant to be.
Dysgraphic programmer in chat says the span read in the works. I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good. No,
I do remember when they were traveling around, like I kept trying to figure out like how it would look in like physical movement through the space, and it just always felt wonky, in which it's probably supposed to be, but
it's
that same kind of disbobulation. Yeah,
because it's not a place; it's a realm.
Concept.
It's and it's just
the fact that they're in different places is because of how they view things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the problem.
And this is why Hoyd even dares, or fears to enter here, because if you are not as careful as possible, you could easily get swept away and lost in this.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure he'd have enough connections that it would be even more dangerous for him, because he would have more things that would pull on him.
I mean, oh, absolutely.
I do like when we go into the spiritual realm and we get to see spiritual realm concept of Hoyd, and it's like, I'm supposed to be clever, but you have to imagine what it is, and so it's not quite working.
It's like he breaks the fourth wall, and but yeah, the other reason that Hoyd probably doesn't want to come is the spiritual realm is where the shards kind of live, and there's a few of those who don't like him much.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things where they're like, okay, we're putting ourselves into Race's power. Well, they said Race, because they figured it out. Odium's power.
They figured it out at that point.
Yeah. And there's like, isn't that going to be dangerous? It's like, well, he's focused, like the gods are infinitely expanded, but they don't have infinite attention. And so they can't see everything if their attention is in other places. So you're probably going to escape his view. And it's like, man, there's a lot of wiggle room in that, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe if you don't sneeze wrong, or
which, when that happens in Shallan's story, and Odium's like, finally, the rats that have been skulking around my walls.
I forgot about that. Oh.
And it's like, well, he's not wrong.
Yep.
Well, and the other thing that they don't realize at first is that when they get sucked in, Gavinor gets pulled in after them.
Yeah. It takes a minute before they find him.
And
he's not having a good memory.
No, he's not. But I find it very interesting how between each of the visions where they have, they're very like where they look for specific things, they've almost got these little hub worlds that they create for themselves. Like it's just,
I didn't think of it that way, but I like that.
It's like, this is how we find each other, and then open up a gate to the next level, the next event, the next experience, memory, whatever you want to call it. And so they start hopping around through history into the bodies of various historical figures. And it's interesting, especially because they're both bondsmiths. They can kind of project themselves into who they want.
They finally figure out. It takes them a minute, but they figure out how to do that. So they can be like, I want to be in that person watching that thing.
I really liked that they did the thing where Dalinar keeps forgetting that Navani's a bondsmith because it's such a new thing.
Right.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you can
He's
do
like,
that. That's
well,
right.
and it'd be a very weird thing because he's been the only one for so long.
Well,
Mhm.
and not only that, bondsmiths, differently than the other orders, each bondsmith has one of 3 specific spren, and because of that, it manifests slightly differently for each of them.
Mhm.
It's not just like with a bondsmith, it feels like it's not just, okay, this is what a bondsmith is, this is what it does, and this is how it works. He is the bondsmith of the Stormfather, and she is the bondsmith of the sibling. And
So they work
those
different.
manifest very differently.
It's a good little touch.
It actually reminds me a little bit of, I know, Jordan, you haven't read The Wheel of Time. Amy, did you say you have or haven't?
I've read the first 1.5
Okay.
ish.
But it's just basically the way that the one power manifests differently for men and women because they're tapping a different type of power.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same sort of thing. It's the same stuff, but you come at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And of course, Dalinar has and Navani even now have a little bit of experience navigating like this, just because they've gone through the visions from the Stormfather. In fact, that's why they're here, is they want information that the Stormfather refuses to give them.
Mm-hmm.
And
He doesn't
so does
want
cultivation. So for different reasons.
Yeah.
And so it's just, but yeah, so they're in these visions of the past, something they have become familiar with, but they have slightly different capabilities while they're in the spiritual realm as they're doing it. They're bouncing around to different individuals. They're trying to like, they actually kind of have some control over where they're going, which is very different.
Yeah.
But they also don't know where they're trying to go.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they're looking for. So like at the start, they're just sort of like, okay, we have this rock that Wit gave us.
Uh-huh.
And
Said
he
it's
quite
important.
undersold what it was.
Yeah. Have either of y'all ever played the game To the Moon?
Mm-mm.
It's a short little RPG maker game that just the storytelling is phenomenal. But the concept in it is they're entering somebody's mind and trying to get to earlier points in his memory, and to do that they have to find an artifact that links to an earlier memory. And that it's a similar concept. Phenomenal game, definitely worth checking out. But I like what that they're going through, and like, how can we find something that will connect us closer to the event that we're looking for. They're doing it in moving forward through time, just as they which is why they're when they get to the creation of the heralds of the Oath Pact, they're just like, okay, can we use a herald blade to get us where we want to go? And he's like, they're trying to find things. Okay, what is something that's going to stick around? What's something that
is long lasting? Yeah, not just somebody's hair ribbon. It's an honor blade.
Because they're dealing on the scale of millennia. They're trying to find something. Now the hair ribbon, or not hair ribbon, what is it? There's something.
I feel like it's a ribbon.
Yeah,
is it a ribbon? Okay,
that was
Shalash's ribbon. Yeah,
and she had, I'm not a little girl anymore. And
I'm an
it's
adult.
like, oh no.
Yeah,
but it's like it got them forward. It helps them, and it's just such an interesting concept of finding a physical manifestation that's a link, especially when you're in a world where there is no such thing as a physical, manifestation.
The concept is strong enough that you just have it connected. Yeah.
So just the concept of having these anchor points to pull themselves to different memories. I really like how that works out.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to kind of see what's gonna be the object that does it.
Well, it's just I was very concerned about the entire idea of coming to the spiritual realm at all. And so I was glad to see that he made it make sense, but also make it so that this isn't going to be a repeatable thing, or even something you want to try.
We're not colonizing the spiritual realm the way that we have the cognitive realm.
Yeah, not so much. Yeah.
the other thing I thought was very interesting just about the concept is just the very simple fact that they have to have these connections with each other, and it causes a little bit of issue because they're like, well, I feel this other connection here. What's this? And meanwhile, there's Shalon and crew are like, no, don't tug on this one. Leave us alone.
Don't do that, yeah.
And they just have no way of knowing that what they're tugging on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It kind of just recently occurred to me, but like you guys know about like how the Fae would often switch babies, or in stories and things like that.
Changelings, yeah.
I did not.
Changelings,
actually,
yeah.
but-
So like it just kind of occurred to me that that's kind of what happens with Gavinor, is like they do that at the very end, is that's how he gets swapped out, and they do it with a sleeping baby, which is, well, he's a child, but yeah, close enough, which is often how and when the Fae in stories that I've heard would do it, is your kid would go to bed and then the next morning they're totally different.
It's
And
yeah.
it's
There's a little
changeling.
goblin in their place, or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which is
I mean,
rude.
even in the movie Labyrinth. So
Yeah. So it is just that occurred to me, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun little. I mean, and it makes sense for what that is Ray's Todium, whatever, is trying to do.
yeah,
Just mess with them that way. So
Rude guy.
just to throw them off their game for long enough, just as a delay time.
and it's just like, and the moment where they've gone back and he's just has continued to sleep and sleep and sleep, and I'm like, that makes sense. It's fine. He's really tired. It was exhausting. It was stressful. He's been through a lot of things, and then it's like, but are you sure it's him? And I was like, oh, no, because it was already bad enough with your theory.
And you were in so much denial that any of that was going to happen.
I didn't like it. I still don't like it. I like the book, but I still don't like that, because that's just,
I'll be honest. I didn't like the actual switch.
I didn't like the execution. It felt very rushed.
There was a lot of stuff.
I feel like we needed like one interlude from Gavinor's perspective.
Something.
I feel
Like,
like
I know
we needed something. It felt,
I know it reduces the wham that he's going for, but I don't know.
Even if it was
if
it was an interlude afterwards, or something, or just some little scene after Dalinar's gone, then I could see
feels too abrupt
something
for me. Even though like we were all predicting it, and all that stuff, it just didn't quite work for me.
Honestly, I would have been even fine if it just hadn't been a switch. This is like they can't find him. They're worried about him. They're looking for him. They're trying to, they're talking to Hoyt and being like, how do we, what do we do? That would have worked better for me.
I think that probably messed with the pacing that he was trying to go for.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in this book where it's just like, I don't know how I would have done it.
Exactly.
But that felt off, and you just can't quite place how you would be better with it. But it just, it didn't sit quite as well as you wanted it to, because there's just a lot of threads that are all going on, and just, they're everywhere. And it's hard to get them all. Because I mean, as with every Stormlight book, you get 10 questions answered, but then you get 15 more questions. And so that you didn't know to even think about having. And so it's,
and probably even more so with this book.
Oh yes, this one is a lot. He's
juggling a lot of things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like the therapist thing where it's like, I don't know what the better answer is. I just know this didn't quite work.
Yeah. And you know what? For some people, I think it worked great. So I can't complain too much about it. It didn't land right for me.
You could complain
what?
too much. It's an option.
Anyway, so were there any particular scenes that they went through? And actually, you know what? We're going to get a point where it's probably a good time to take a break.
Probably.
So we'll talk about that when we get back. So yeah, we will see y'all in just a minute.
Yep.
And we're back. Okay, so Dalinar and Navani and Gavinor and they're all wibbly wobbling all over the the spiritual realm, and they end up in a bunch of different scenes. I was just wondering, were there any of those scenes that particularly stood out to you? Like the events that they witnessed and
when
experienced?
the humans came to Roshar, that was one that I remember, and especially like it's the dog mom in me that, you know, here was the comments about, oh, they're going to be gone in 300 years, and I'm like, they had dogs. And so it just like that part hurt.
I like that even the Stormfather was like, oh, I liked them. Like
I liked the dogs. And it's like,
but it makes perfect sense why they wouldn't work on Roshar.
well, no. The reason they didn't work is because they didn't bring enough breeding population.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's why, like, it makes sense. Like,
yeah.
But the thing that's cool is it also explains why, for example, axe hounds have their name, because
Hound.
they were named by people who did have hounds at one point, and so
which actually answers a question people have been having.
yes.
Why are they axe hounds? What the?
There are a few moments in this book, particularly, where I feel like Brandon's like, here's your answer. Now stop asking me.
Take the answer. Stop asking me a wobs. Just there you go.
Yeah. Well, I like that because, like, I think it's Wit that actually says it, where he's talking about how it doesn't matter where I go, humans will always invent something dog-like to be man's best friend.
Doesn't he mention that when he's telling the story of the dog and the dragon?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Because Kaladin's like, oh, what? And he's like, oh my goodness, I have to describe a dog to you. What is this?
Yep. They know what dragons are. They have no clue what a dog is.
Because dragons have gone around making sure everybody knows what dragons are.
Lets people know to leave them alone.
Well, and to worship them, you know, like, yeah, respect me and don't pester me. It's fine.
Love me from over there.
Yep. Title of my autobiography.
Oh, that's good. That's every touched out mom. It's just like over there. Just, you can love me, but just not right here.
But no, that scene is amazing, and that's where we get self-aware fake Hoyd.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's breaking a fourth wall, not the fourth wall.
Yeah, he's breaking Dalinar's fourth wall. Does that make our wall the fifth wall?
That's a question for Jordan, not me.
I did watch a video where a guy was talking about what is the fifth wall. Anyway, the thing that's interesting is I just want to point out I am fairly certain we saw Rabboni in that. Just because we got it from Navani's perspective, and it's like, why is that one familiar to me?
I could see.
Oh, you think that was the familiarity?
Yeah, well, because it's I can't remember the specifics of it, but basically there was something about it that, like, she was just like, she seems familiar. We know Rabboni was there.
True.
And I mean, she would have changed bodies
that
several times because she's a fuse, so
yeah,
the body could look different.
So she may just recognize the patterns.
Yeah.
Or the way she carries herself.
Something. Yeah.
It was just something where I was just like, it felt like a nice touch.
Yeah.
Their weird frenemy relationship that they developed over that book.
I also like that it's not spelled out, though. Like,
yes.
some things I don't think should be spelled out. It's just
it wouldn't make sense for her to immediately make that connection, so it's not important to the plot. So
yeah.
But
I think what other.
But just seeing how the humans are literally running from a burning world, and their divisions are still intact.
And seeing the interactions between the heralds before they're the heralds.
Oh yeah, that's trippy. Like, because I always thought of Chanarach as being like soft and delicate and feminine, and she is not.
Well, because
at all,
it's the opposite.
Well, isn't she wearing like furs? Like,
yeah, she's wearing furs, so she looks more like
she's almost
barbarian,
like barbarian style, like Celtic.
Well,
which makes sense because like you look at her, she's Celtic.
Yeah, 100%. But no, she's the bodyguard, which tells you, like, okay, so she must have been really good with a sword long before she was a herald.
Well, and I actually started wondering, a little bit before he got there, which I feel like is kind of a mark of a well-written story because I remember thinking, wait, the heralds with their sicknesses are showing themselves to be kind of the opposite of what they were. Like the decisive one is very indecisive, and and just all these different things. And
Halleck
so
is definitely the most blatant.
Yeah. And so looking at at Chanarach, well, we see her, because again, we have been like a lot of people have been predicting that Chanarach
as soon as we saw her picture.
Shallan's mother. Yeah, exactly. As soon as you see the picture, just like my first thought was that's a picture of Shallan. And then I find out that's Chanarach. I was like, oh, got it.
It's not. And
it's
like, no,
Shallan
it is.
Prime.
But no, it's not.
But so
it's Shallan.
So when you've made that connection, you're just like, okay, so she's Chanarach. Then Chanarach is probably not going to be this, because we see some brief descriptions of Shallan's memory of her mother's. She was beautiful and kind, and it's just like, okay, so I wasn't expecting Chanarach to be like barbarian style gruff, but still, it's just like, okay, that's a good.
And she walks off the set of How to Train a Dragon.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good comparison.
Good visual that you can just be like, yep, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Batar feels just weird. Like she feels sketchy still, and like because she was the one who was working with oh goodness,
Ishar.
With Ishar, and she made the eye things for Moash, right?
No, that was
Videl. Is it Videl?
Yeah, Videl did that.
Okay, well they both
yeah.
they blend together in my head, and they both.
Well, it's because we haven't really
kind of
seen too much.
Yeah.
But Batar's messing with surge binding after they've already burned a planet.
Yeah. If you'd hope that it'd be like, no, stop, don't burn planet 2.0.
Well, it makes sense when you understand the concept of they're starting to have issues with their people, and it's looking like it's going to move to war with the Singers. And so they're like, okay, but we don't have resources of any kind because we're on this mud hole. And so we're
stuck in this little section they're letting us stay in, and we're bursting at the seams.
And it's just the issue. What I like how human the conflict between the Singers and the humans is. Just how mundane it is. It's, you gave us this land. This land isn't very good. And the Singer's like, oh, it'll eventually get there. And it's like, yeah, that's great. We're dying.
We need it. We need it now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're kind of going out there, and it's like, well, no, that's our land though. And it's just the mundanities of geopolitics.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple thing. And I just like, it's not some grand thing. It's not this amazing thing of this centuries long war. It's just the mundaneness of, you put two competing people in proximity to one another.
And not enough resources for them to feel comfortable. Yeah.
We need a place. They gave us a place, but the place that they gave us isn't big enough. Conflict happens.
Yeah. I liked how mundane it was.
Mm-hmm.
Just sometimes, especially in, I feel like epic fantasy, everyone wants there to be like grand inciting incidents. And
it's not this crusade. It's
well, it wasn't even like all the humans were doing it.
Right.
It was just a few, and that's what starts the conflict.
Well, and some of them had fought against each other previously. I mean, like that's the thing that's really interesting with Nail is like, he shows up. He is not an ally of these people.
No.
But that's kind of one of the reasons that he's included, is because we need, different perspectives and different, it's just like it's just like, we're trying something here. We got to work together on this. So I don't like you and you don't like me, but we got to work together on something. So
Because otherwise we're all going to starve. We're all going to have these problems. And so it's either you work with us or we all die. So
Well, and then the other thing I like is that in the end, it's Nail who brings Taln into it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Taln's
just the horseman.
Taln's a stable boy.
Yep. He's the only one of them who wasn't nobility.
And I like that that's why he insisted he join them. It's like, no. We need someone who's not a king, we need someone who's just an average dude.
Because it seems like overall the people who desire power and ruling and stuff are usually the worst people to do it, because they feed on their power hunger, and so it just gets worse and worse and worse. Versus Taln just doesn't have that.
Well, it's not just he doesn't have that; he does not want it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he actively doesn't want it.
Yeah,
he has to be convinced to do this.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've always made the joke of, like, that's how I don't know what you call that type of government, but it's a government where you find the people who don't want power the most, and then you kidnap them in the middle of the night and you stick them in the Capitol, and it's like, you're now serving a sentence of 4 years of leadership.
Go.
Now it's like, I don't know how you actually enforce that, but I think it's my ideal form of government.
I think it's called Azamir.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. For different reasons, though.
At least
my version involves
at least
more
in this
kidnapping
iteration,
and less tests.
Yeah, less essays.
Less essays.
In my version, the Capitol's basically a prison.
Well, I mean, you're constantly stared at. People watch you sleep and eat and everything else. And
yeah, you have a point there. That one's a prison too.
Because that would
with gilded chains.
Not be fun. Yeah, it's a gilded cage.
The other thing I liked about just that entire segment is seeing how active Honor was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, he would just come and speak to them.
Mm-hmm.
I did not anticipate that.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll get into the Shalon chapter. It turns out Honor was Mraize.
Yeah, well.
Did not anticipate that one.
Speaking of Honor, let's talk a little bit about that, because, I mean, like, we've been looking at some of the scenes, but this is another major lore dump.
So
like,
much.
Brandon's just like, okay, you have been asking about honor and cultivation and all that stuff and how all this stuff happens, so I'm going to answer it. Buckle up.
Boom. Just like on your lap.
Well, the thing that was interesting, because he's one of the few shards we get to see, like, in depth. We got to see ruin and preservation. We got to see ruin very much in depth. We didn't get to see preservation in depth until Secret History. And the thing that we learned is that, like, the whole 80 was once a good man, and you see how the will overpowered him. Honor's the opposite.
Yeah.
Honor actually kind of resisted, or Tanavast resisted the Honor shard to the point where they eventually split, which shows that that's part of his problem. Was he was so focused on, I have to stop odium, that he ceased to act honorably.
Yeah.
Well, part of that is he probably did this before he had been holding the shard so long as to be fully corrupted in a not
overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed by it.
But it was very interesting seeing him, like, how his whole goal is just keep odium here, just keep him here. And in the end, like, when he the whole thing at the lead up to Ba'ato Mishram's betrayal is one of those things where it's just like, I was wondering what caused it. And the fact that, because we assumed, like, okay, everything seems to center around the betrayal, or to the binding, or whatever we call it, of Ba'ato Mishram. And we see not only does it's entirely around that event, because that's what causes the singers to lose their forms, and it's also what causes well, it'll Mishram obviously to get imprisoned. It's what causes the sibling to go catatonic.
It breaks the spren bonds.
Yeah, ends up causing the dead eyes on some level, and it also ends in the death of Honor.
Mm-hmm. Because it was something that was so completely against
Honor.
Honor.
Yeah, it was very shady.
It's just one of those, like, everything was like, it's not always, some pivotal magical thing. And it's like, in this one, it was. This is the thing it was all leading up to.
Mm-hmm.
And even Malishi, who was the one sort of kind of plotting this whole thing, was like, I don't know about this. And Honor's just like, you doing this or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it absolutely breaks the whole magic system.
Yeah. Well, it's especially so sad after seeing that they an accommodation was coming.
Well, and it would have worked. That's the thing, is like, you see it and you're like, this would have worked.
Yeah.
But you preparing for the possibility that it wouldn't work is what made it not work.
Which it shows also how, just like the heralds, Tanavas was wearing thin.
Mm-hmm.
And because he just kept acting against, he to his credit didn't get overwhelmed by the will of the shard, but it's also to his detriment. Because
part of the reason he wasn't overwhelmed, I think, by the will of the shard is because he had behaved so counter to the will of the shard that the shard, by the nature of being Honor, was repulsed by him.
Yeah. And I also think on some level having cultivation there probably helped ground him more so.
True.
Even though you see several instances, it's like, you see how they lose track of time for eons.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sort of look back and they're like, whoa, what
They
happened
daydreamed.
here?
I've had daydreams like that.
Yeah. Or played Civilization.
Oh gosh. But okay, one thing I did like was I got a little bit of confirmation of my theory about, I mean, it's not a major theory, but that Tanavast and the name Corivelium Avast are connected, because he was previously named Tanner, which race calls him repeatedly. But because
I get the
of
impression this race guy is not a very nice person.
No. But because of the link with Corivelium Avast, it's never explicitly stated, but that's kind of what I'm inferring from it. It
feels like he's taking his wife's name, kind of.
It's
for lack of a better.
Well, I mean,
word.
He's taking his dragon wife's name.
Yeah, I was gonna
say. Yeah. Which is
there's
fair.
No gender norms when
dragons,
your better half is a dragon. It doesn't matter which half it is; they're the better half. It's a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dragon. So yep. I'm gonna take that name. That's cool.
But it's cool because that was kind of my question for Brandon that I'd sat on for a long time. It's like, if I ever have an opportunity to ask Brandon a question and don't get sidetracked by the fact that, he had to change his policy based on our logo. That's the question. That's the question that I wanted to ask, but now it's answered. So
yeah,
I need a new question, guys.
I need to have a question in general for him. So yeah, continue.
The other thing that was interesting, just going through their history, it was very interesting to see how cultivation kind of just very much like the other shards. It's like, oh, just don't worry about him. It's fine. When it comes to, in the meantime, we see her plan she ends up executing, and it almost works until he decides, nah, I'm the villain.
Yeah.
Okay. The fact, so one of the big conflict for Dalinar's chapters were his constant headbutting with the Stormfather.
Mm-hmm.
The Stormfather just constantly just being like, just stop poking your head into things.
You're not gonna like it. Don't do it.
No,
And-
that's the thing is the Stormfather is so jaded at this point by his interactions with Gavilar, and he's just like I don't trust the Collins. Period. Just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but
It's a little frustrating because over the course of the other books, it's felt like Dalinar has made so much progress with him.
Well, it's more the Stormfather's lashing out because up until this time, they've just trusted Honor's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only now that they're not trusting Honor's plan. He's like, no, just trust the plan. And Dalinar's like, no, this plan isn't going to lead to anything good.
Mm-hmm. It's a bad plan.
Yeah, and they're going back and the Stormfather being the last vestige of Tanavast. And I like that it's mixed with shame because he knows what happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if there's anything, it's the thing. No, I'm the storm. I'm not, I do not think like men. And it's like, but you act like, humans do. Because shame is one of our most powerful motivators where we will cause all kinds of, suffering to just avoid
Confronting it.
Yeah. To confront it. It's just, it's he's more human than he likes to believe himself to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say to his credit, in the end, it does exactly as he said it would. It gets Dalinar killed and it gets him killed.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the thing that's still just mind blowing. It's like, oh, Brandon vaporized the Stormfather.
Yeah.
A lot happened near
the
end.
In those words.
Yeah.
He said vaporized.
Well, and he vaporized the Hoyd temporarily too. So
yeah. Hoyd's got some Dawn Shard hacks going on though. So
no, he has chemistry hacks going on.
More biology.
Ulem. He's got cell cultures ready on Scadrial apparently that he's able to regrow from, and Ulam's over here like, oh, so that worked, huh? What happened?
Now without the cell cultures though, he would have regrown. It's just he wouldn't be able to control it, isn't that?
Who knows?
I don't know.
I think the cell culture was there to say, I am going to regrow here.
I'd have to completely reread it, but I don't know.
I don't remember. It was a frantic reading at the end for me. So
I mean, it was and frantic things were happening.
Oh yeah, so many.
I mean,
frantic things.
The frantic Hoyd runs into Sigzil and he's just like, "Hey, you done good? Here, take this. I'm out. Bye." And just
run away.
Boom.
I loved the whole. He's able because. Taravangian takes up honor, becomes retribution, and it kills Dalinar, kills the Stormfather, and then he suddenly realizes, because cultivation flees, because suddenly cultivation's like, uh-oh.
Nope.
Well, cultivation, not only is it a double shard, she's an Oathbreaker. She settled on a planet with
another shard.
Yep.
And so she's under Retribution's power. And so it's literally run for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
it's going to be interesting to see which shards can stand up to him and can come against him and be like, no, my honor or whatever else is totally intact. So no, you don't get to touch me. But
we've got endowment.
At least endowment, and it sounds like valor is gonna play a role.
Whimsy we don't know anything about.
I don't think they'll be reliable.
Yeah. Their invention, as far as we know, is probably fine.
Yeah. But
what's the one on Komashi?
She splintered herself. That was
that was virtuosity.
But if
virtuosity.
But if they're working together, that's
yeah.
I don't know. But the whole the destruction is so much, but we're kind of avoiding a subject we have to talk about. Because as soon as Taravangian finally finds Dalinar and just separates everyone, he starts just putting Dalinar through his worst moments, just trying to make him feel horrible. And Dalinar has to then do the dumbest thing any character does in all of the Stormlight Archive. And he confronts the Blackthorn and gives him his memories.
In the hopes of fixing the Blackthorn, right?
Yeah. Well, because it's the whole thing, like, this is what changed me. But Dalinar's forgetting a very key component. He lived an entire life forgetting this moment. And then cultivation slowly brought those memories of being this horrible person back, and Evie back.
And he's trying to do it in reverse order, and it's not.
He gave him the memories at the worst time, when he is the most Blackthorn.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Yeah.
So in the end...
that's when he is consumed by the thrill.
Yeah.
And just and rage, and
he's given this thing a mind now, his mind, and so it's like, all right, it now has a cognitive aspect. It clearly has a spiritual aspect. Everything does, and we know a shard can create a body.
Yep.
And now we're gonna have so much trauma for Adolin, and for Navani, and for everybody, to be perfectly honest.
Gavinor.
And for Gavinor. Oh my goodness, that poor child. He's gonna need so much therapy. So much therapy, and Kaladin's not there to do it.
Well,
maybe he'll become
shenanigans.
Maybe he'll become a Windrunner so that Kaladin will be his patron.
Maybe.
No, it's one of those things, because it's the whole Odium has wanted the Blackthorn as his champion for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is it as good as Dalinar himself? No, but Taravangian's clearly willing to settle for substitutes, since he did that to his entire city. And I love Taravangian sitting there stewing in his city. Like,
well, I mean, you say he did that to his entire city. He preserved the originals.
Yeah. He moved them to spirit. Yeah,
so they're not copies.
But he made it look like he did it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a copy of his city, though.
Right.
And it's the thing that he started this whole escapade just to save is the thing he ends up destroying.
Yeah. It's just...
And it's interesting. And what I love is he's stewing, because the whole reason is, like, he eviscerates Yasna, because it's like, no, being a ruler, you clearly favor your people, like, so it's not the greatest good ever. And he's over here spouting off, no, I'm going to save everyone, and I keep my promises and all this other stuff. And in the end, he's amongst his family in Kharbranth, and he's still just sitting there enraged because Dalinar was right about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it just, I think at some point that's gonna, now at this point, that point might be like 2040 when we finally get to it.
But
it does make me wonder if there's going to be some moment of growth in the Blackthorn, or some look from the Blackthorn or whatever, that's going to give a moment or a pang of like guilt or something to Retribution, like just from the whole, like, Dalinar was right about that, and then here's Dalinar 2.0.
I think Blackthorn's there for Adolin's next character arc.
Oh goodness.
Adolin's next character arc, Gavinor's next character arc, Navani's next character arc.
Oh, that poor woman. She needs to stop being widowed.
Well, I don't think you technically can stop being widowed, can you?
Well, she needs
to stop having events that cause her to
become
more
another.
Maybe she should stop marrying really important people who people want to kill.
I think at this point she's not marrying anybody else, because she's going to be like, nope.
She's probably, I think at this point she's probably done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just,
especially because whenever she comes out of stasis, she's just going to have a lot of problems to deal with.
She's going to have so much to deal with.
It'll be a
Yeah,
good
she's
distraction.
not going to have time to date.
Yeah. Ugh.
Oh man.
No,
It's just,
it gets messy. Now again, I feel I agree. I feel at the end it was a little rushed, and I would have liked a little more time. I might have spent a little less time with R'Lane and Renar, and a little less time with Zeth's flashbacks to get a little more here.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, there were several things that could have been tightened up a bit.
It's just there's just a few things. This book is dense. There's not a lot you can
really cut. Yeah,
you can really cut to make it work.
Yeah, it's funny because I think Josh is a little more than halfway through, and he's still going, man, I can just feel like that tension like building up, and I'm like, oh, it just keeps going. It just goes and goes and goes. It just keeps building. Oof.
No, there's just not much you could really pull, because I and obviously we'll get to it in the next two. I feel like Shallan's and Adolin's arcs are like there's no wasted space on those arcs.
They are
fairly tight.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
there
I
might
guess
be a little bit that could be tightened up with Adolin, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, so I could see some people being like, "Well, you could tighten up the things," but it's building the relationship there, and so that's going to take a little more meandering and a little more breathing room and stuff in it. So it didn't feel overly verbose to me on that, because it was fun to see that friendship blossom.
But yeah, just with this book, it's just like there's not much. There's not much you can cut. I mean,
there's not much fat on it. Yeah.
What was it Brandon said in the interview? I'm pushing the limits of what can be bound, which I thought was one of the most hilarious sentences I've ever heard.
Yeah. I may have cut some of the early stuff just because I felt like it took a long time to get into the major chunks of it. But because of the 10-day structure of it, I think that Brandon kind of felt in a similar way that Elantris is kind of has its own issues, because Brandon was tied to that ABC,
1, 2, 3,
ABC,
1, 2, 3,
ABC,
1, 2, 3,
ABC.
yeah.
Well, and it's also if you tighten that first bit, I think the entire book then feels like a Sanderlanche on some level.
And you need to give time to people to kind of ease into it and remember what's going on and go, okay, yeah. Because I mean, there's no guarantee that someone's going to read book 4 and then jump immediately into book 5.
I agree. I still think that it took a little bit more time than was necessary. Like there were a couple times, I can't think of them off the top of my head, where I felt like Brandon was like, okay, we need to check in with this person for this day. And it's like, honestly, if they're not doing anything this day, check in with them in a couple days.
And there were sections where he doesn't check in, like especially with people who are in the spiritual realm.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like with it's fair. It's just, I don't know. It's a tough.
It's tough to get the pacing.
It's a tough balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
I think the real answer is Brandon needs to invent a different type of paper so that he can put more pages in a book.
Or just do the UK thing where you have like part 1, part 2.
That's really, he just needed more words, and like you said, pushing the limits of what can be bound.
I don't know.
So it's just hard.
Anyway,
but yeah. So, do we want to talk about the contest itself?
It felt like a little bit of a letdown to me.
It was. I wouldn't say a letdown. It did feel rushed. It didn't.
I felt let down by the contest itself.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I just needed a little bit, like, because Dalinar's just like, no, I'm not going to fight you, and I understand that's the entire point. I would have liked a little more in the contest of Dalinar trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
And especially if all we're going to do is then have Taravangian just freeze him and be like, oh, come on, that's right here. Go do it. It's just like,
Yeah.
It just didn't feel that it wasn't as interesting as the build-up. The stuff that happens after, great. Like
I liked it in concept. I felt like what the events I thought were a good concept. I wasn't a huge fan of the execution.
Yeah, I've said before that like I struggle with bad guys who are too good at what they do, and that felt like a lot of what this book was. Like Moash still was just fine, and Retribution now, like as far as he's concerned, he's still doing just fine. He's got even more power and everything else, and like I know it's probably building up to arcs, and I mean we have the second half and all these other things, but it just I get frustrated by it and I struggle with it. And I know it's a me thing and I know it makes the story more interesting, but I just get angry about it because I'm just I feel like the good guys are just getting stomped and stomped and stomped and stomped and stomped.
I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I feel like it was definitely a good place to end with the heroes in jeopardy, but it did feel like the villains' victory for the time being was too all-encompassing.
Because I mean, you can see sort of a way out, maybe, but it's looking pretty dark. Literally,
see, for me, I guess I liked it because first of all, like I predicted I kept calling it war, but like that was my big prediction, was that it's going to be he's going to end as a fusion of the two shards.
Uh-huh.
But it's more they won, but they didn't get what they wanted out of the win. Like that was the thing. Like it was supposed to be a total victory.
They just get all of Roshar.
Yeah, it was supposed to be all of it, except like the only thing that Taravangian expected to not get was Urithiru itself.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get it. Upon assuming the power, he was supposed to then destroy all the Spren. He didn't get to do that, and so they were able to hold him off. And it's to me, it's more the fact that, and that they didn't get Azir, which was like, obviously when we get there, I think that was my favorite storyline of the book.
Oh yeah,
but it's just the fact that it was supposed to be complete, and that's the thing that gnaws at Taravangian. He's a guy who plans for every little thing that could happen, and there's these gaping holes now in his plan.
Perfect plan.
And it's just one of those things. Those are going to be the holes that get exploited.
And I mean, and there's the whole stuff with the singers where they're independent-ish. Yeah. That he's probably not happy about either, but there's only so much he can do about that. And so but I always, in knowing how big of a gap we're going to have between book 5 and book 6, it eats at me. And I just get frustrated by it, because it just feels like the good guys were screwed no matter what they did, kind of, and they were, and it's just
that was the whole
frustrating
point.
I know, it's just
contest was that
I struggle with that.
Yeah, it's like this deal, there's no good solution.
Yeah. So
and
that's the thing.
I also just, maybe it's just because I'm also looking forward in the Cosmere, and I'm very intrigued to see where he goes with this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. Apparently, like, he's so worried about what's going to happen, he does a big time dilation thing on the planet and goes into hiding. So he's on the run right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that doesn't sit for me, and this is purely me.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way that he won Thalina.
It felt slimy. Everything about him feels slimy right now.
The reason I say I don't like that, it didn't feel like Finn. Because Finn is scrappy, and it felt like Finn was she felt weaker than Finn to me.
I would have liked if Finn then decided to stand up anyway, and then he reveals, okay, well, I had your people in the background, and you really should have been thinking about the fact that you are an elected queen, not queen.
Yes. That would have worked better for me. That and again, that's me. It just the way that because essentially what happened is Fen betrayed the Alliance. She was given logical reasons. She had good reasons for it, but I didn't like that Fen was essentially a traitor.
I just saw it as her being. Yeah, I can see that.
I understand what you're saying. It didn't fit the character that I thought that he had built for Finn, and
it felt dirty to me. Like I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was like, and Yasna spends like the whole book just being like frustrated, and she's not making any headway, and then she loses her sense of like confidence kind of at the end because she's like, I totally biffed it, and that's like the end kind of what we see with her. And
the other way it could have worked with Fen that I think would have worked would have been if Fen said, no, this isn't it doesn't matter that she's being hypocritical here. Like, it's still not right. And then if Taravangian's like, okay, I'm taking this, this, and this. You're going to be isolated. Your only trading partners are going to be this. I'm going to be able to starve you out anyway. Like, just take aside all this other stuff that she's a hypocrite. Who are you going to trade with? Like, and if he just made
and to a merchant, absolutely.
Yeah, and she could have been like, and then I kind of like that better, because then her and Yasna's debate would be, I gotta look out for, like, you looked out for your people, I gotta look out for mine.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But and I don't know, I think like it's just one of those, economically speaking, I don't see another option. Like, this seems like this is when I have the most leverage now.
It felt so because it made Finn feel weak.
It was just frustrating.
The more I talk about it, the more I like the idea of her being like, this is when I have the most leverage against him. I'm not going to have better. And he's clearly going to go to war, and I don't want my people getting conscripted.
Yeah.
I think even then, Yasna would have been like, yeah, that's what I would do. Like, just sort of, crap.
Yeah, I don't. There was just something about it that didn't quite sit right with me. So,
hopefully it's leading to some, because look, Yasna is my favorite character in these books so far. So, I'm hoping it's leading somewhere interesting.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be somewhere interesting simply for the fact that Yasna, as things currently stand, is supposed to be the flashback character for the final book.
Oh yeah. Oh
so,
man.
Yeah, the order, I believe,
things to do then.
Yeah, I believe the order that we have right now, which Brandon has said could change, is Lift, Renarin, Shalash, Taln, Yasna.
Yeah. My other big question at the end of this, just with what Taravangian leaves, so does cultivation. I'm wondering what's going on with the Night Mother at this point.
The Midnight Mother?
No, not the Midnight Mother.
The Night Watcher.
Night Watcher, thank you. I combined the two characters into one.
Well, she's a Spren.
She is. And
so she was she was in danger, but now she's been saved from that because of Kaladin.
By the New Oath Pact, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I think I know what's going to happen. Now that I think about it, the sibling made rooms for
their siblings,
brother and sister.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it's going to be they get to hang out now.
Sibling
there's nowhere else that's safe.
Slumber party.
Yeah. Literally for the sibling.
A few millennia.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah. No. I think I'm just frustrated in general because like Roshar's never going to be the same as far as I can tell because of everything that's happened.
There's no more high storms, so
there's no more high storms. There's only so there's all of these big drastic changes that I don't like, and Moash still didn't get his. So that's I want him to just go away. I know there's probably going to be some big huge arc that's going to be really cool to watch, but right now I just want him
as it
to go away.
stands, Gavinor has now been given 20 years of training, specifically against like shades of his grandfather. So we know he's a really good fighter now. And
I could be okay with Gavinor
and
taking
strong
him down.
enough to start getting his to go get his revenge.
Well, and Gavinor's been talking about wanting to take him down.
Oh, and I mean, it would be, I don't know if this is going to happen, but it'd be really interesting for Moash to be like, aha! And then there's Gavinor, who's really good at what he does, and there's Kaladin as a herald going, and just like, no, you don't get to do this anymore. That would be satisfying, but I want it now. Now is when I want it. But I gotta wait. So,
well, that's the other thing.
We'll get book 6 in like 2034,
and there will be a long time gap. That's the thing that'll be interesting. Is like, because Moash hasn't been taken down by the end of this book, that means Moash has at least a decade of being active ahead of him.
Ugh. How many more Windrunners is he gonna kill? That's what I don't like.
Well, none for a while. Because they're all in Eurathera and he cannot go there.
Anyway. Frustration.
It's just fortunate for them that they have, light weavers and else colors in Eurathera and an unlimited source of investiture there.
Yeah, actually, Moash can't step foot in Eurathera.
Oh, I know. I know they're safe there, but if they step out.
No, but I mean, like, specifically, like, he can't go there. He can't see a thing there because he sees investiture, and that entire town is investiture.
So, yeah,
that thing would blaze like a...
Well, isn't there...
Poor spook.
Isn't there a boundary around it now? Like
yeah, there's a physical barrier, but like even if that barrier goes away...
He can't see.
Yeah, he can't see a thing with these things on.
Because it's like Spook being overwhelmed by, and having to wear the cloth over his face.
Well, it's like
but also
80 can't read anything that's written in metal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that is one giant spread. It is not going to be useful for him to go in there.
I don't think it would be very friendly to him either.
Yeah, it doesn't like him.
No.
Okay, well, anything that we need to talk about before we start wrapping up?
I'd also be okay with Lift taking out Moash, just because she would do it in a hilarious but graceful way, and I would be all for it. So, also
and feeds him to her chicken.
She's about to start getting trained by Vasher. So
she's gonna get some big level up. It's gonna be amazing.
I am so excited for her after, like, she's gonna get some Arya Stark, full just deadly training. The former urchin who now knows what they're doing.
But I hope she keeps her snark still. That'd be great. Anyway.
She's training with Vasher. She's not going to lose her snark.
She's going to keep the snark. It'll be great. So.
Well, because there's anyone who's begging to get snarked at, it's him.
Well, and he'll snark back. That's like...
tit for tat. It'll be great.
I mean, it's basically his replacement for Nightblood. It's just instead of an eldritch puppy, it's just this
eldritch urchin, orphan. I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, in the technical definition of eldritch, she kind of is. Like, she is this unknowable thing of, again, why did cultivation make a radiant that's powered by lifelight?
Yep.
Why not?
Still waiting for that shoe to drop.
And generates her own lifelight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's about to be one of the most powerful people on the planet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because she has her radiant oaths, but she doesn't have to rely on retribution for investiture.
Mm-hmm.
She just makes her own. She just needs a nice supply of food.
Yep.
So
once they invent power bars, she's going to be unstoppable.
Imagine if they gave her like caffeine or something.
Oh man,
Want to see it? Anyway, we love hearing from our listeners. So please, even though we are pulling back on the podcast, we are going to continue to check the email accounts. So please write in. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your latest theories. While you're at it, we would love to hear your feedback about what you think of the podcast and what we've done over the years. You can send all your questions and suggestions and everything else to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. It doesn't even have to be concise.
You can even do the social media accounts too, if you want to do that.
All right. Well, we do have our own personal projects that we're working on outside of this podcast. So Jordan, why don't you let us know what you've got going on?
You can find me twitch.tv/splice stream. I am doing more Quizzard this weekend. So if you would like to participate in video game trivia like Baindeer did, come and join us. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Cool. And Amy, how about you?
My Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. My Instagram is @coincidence_cosplay. My TikTok is @coincidencecosplay, all one word. And my website is still sad, and it is www.coincidencecosplay.com. I am gonna continue to try and just post all the random stuff that I've done that I have not posted, but my most recent projects, like I mentioned earlier, is adding some HTV, some heat transfer vinyl to 2 different skirts of the different Cosmere world symbols, as well as the Night Radiant ones. So I did film some stuff. I just need to actually edit things. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, you said the Cosmere worlds and the
Night Radiant orders. Yeah.
Okay.
So that one, the Night Radiant one is a black skirt, and I just did the other dominant color for all the different Night Radiant orders. And the other one is a red skirt, because I like red. And I tried to find colors that would sort of work for the different worlds. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. The only content I'm really part of helping create at this point, though, is Jordan's other podcast. I think we overleveled. Essentially, it's him and a bunch of college buddies just reminiscing, complaining about the good old days of gaming. Just basically, trauma bonding over what we went through as 1980s and 90s kids with and just experiencing, not trauma bonding, but you know what I mean.
Well, somewhat. I mean, we were definitely trauma bonding over that one level in The Lion King for the Super Nintendo.
Yep. So, it's just a bunch of middle-aged nerds we're geeking out together. Our most recent couple of episodes, a few weeks ago, we talked about the various balls in video game and which one is best, the quality of each of them. I blew Jordan's mind with the existence of a game just called The Ball.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, okay. See, that was the exact face I made, Amy.
It's like, what?
Well, especially because once you described it, it's just something I really felt like I should have heard about.
Exactly. And then the last week we talked about all of the Disney licensed games. So the games from all the different eras that are based on Disney properties. Of course, Kingdom Hearts also got mentioned because
that's Disney.
And I have to give Bill full credit for that, because the idea of going to a licensed game topic was completely his. And then I realized that's way too broad, and so we had to narrow that down.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, we are going to be shutting down the Patreon, but we'd still love it if you'd let your friends know about the show. We've got over 180 episodes in the backlog, and those are sticking around. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies, because we are still going to be making episodes from time to time. So if you want to get those alerts, it'd be great. And if you want to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we would absolutely love that. Also, please comment in the underneath the videos. Just let us know what you've thought, what your thoughts are, your predictions, all that kind of stuff. We'd love to hear from you. All right, final thoughts.
Navani keep losing husbands, and it's sad.
She
already said that.
Where was the last place she left them? She needs to check.
Spiritual realm, obviously.
Yeah. I still, every time I think of where Navani is at the end of this book, I just picture Zelda. It's like she is stuck in a Zelda crystal right now.
I picture that, or the Firefly, how like River is in that like cryogenic thing.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Well, in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we are going to be continuing our deeper dives into the various plots over the course of Wind and Truth. Next time, we're going to be looking at Shallan, Renarin, R'Lain, and Crew's story. So make sure to join us in chat for the live discussion on Monday, March 10th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.